Opposite colored bishop endings have a very large drawish tendency due to the many possibilities of the defender to dig in a safe fortress on the squares of the bishop's color. So a good guideline for the attacker is try to create a second passed pawn or another passed pawn which cannot be stopped on one and the same diagonal and which is as far away from the other passed pawn as possible. One case in point is Court of Botvinnik, Moscow 1955. Black to move and win. Yeah, and due to the nature of this endgame, the large drawish tendency, and if the bishop can keep control forever, there are often very surprising winning motives. You should be aware of that. G5. Very strong by Botvinnik. This destroys the backbone of White's fortress. Now there will be another black passed pawn on the king side, and yeah, this will win. If the h-pawn takes, then okay, the black h-pawn wins. White now must give too much material, including the bishop, to stop it, and then black wins. Okay. So Court of Talk with the f-pawn. Now, of course, black's extremely valuable passed b-pawn must be preserved, and king g3 is forced. At the moment, white even has an extra pawn, but this doesn't matter at all. Black's bishop controls both white passed pawns and his own passed b-pawn on one and the same diagonal. This principle of one diagonal is really very, very important in bishop endings, and especially in opposite colored bishop endings. Black can never fall into Zugzwang, has control forever, and yeah, will win. Here, yeah. Okay, it will not lose, is the first conclusion. And here will even win, as now the two black passed pawns are more than 3 files apart, and black's bishop controls the h1 square, the queening square, and so it is over. One last point I want to make. Here, Kordov resigned. And the point I want to make is that now black's bishop can switch diagonals, and now this is the new one diagonal where the principle of one diagonal is applied. The d-pawn can be stopped on d7 and the h-pawn protected, and then black's king can cross over to the queen side to win the bishop first and the game later. So the principle of one diagonal is very important here for the attacker, but it can also be important for the defender. We will see in the next example. Okay, and usually the attacker tries to create another passed pawn, and there even very radical means can be used, and relatively often are used. This is due to the very special nature of these opposite colored bishop endings. Such pure opposite colored bishop endings are in some way a game or a world of its own, with its own rules and guidelines, and a very large drawish tendency. But this changes radically, very radically, when more pieces come, as we will see later on the DVD, when, for example, I will deal with rook and bishop against rook and bishop with opposite colored bishops and the guidelines on that. It's completely different. There they favor the attacker, while here the drawish tendency is extremely large, the largest of all theoretical endgames. If the defender is stuck insecurely on squares of the color of his bishop, then often nothing can be done. But this was an exception. Botvinnik opened the gates with this fortress breaker. Okay. I, of course, just had to include the following famous classic. Veselin Topalov, Alexei Shirov, Linares 1988. What is the only move to win for black? If you don't know it, you won't find it. Our panel of the British Chess Magazine, a panel of judges voted Bishop h3 to be the most amazing move of all time. The only move to win. To break White's fortress based on the principle of one diagonal, this is more important than the bishop itself. Really amazing. Because if nothing special happens, for instance like this, And now some sample line, whatever. It's just to illustrate the point. Then, white has a fortress based on the principle of one diagonal, and the bishop can wait there forever, controls everything, but the king, of course, must keep the doors of the house closed. And then this is a fortress which holds forever. It's a draw, based on the principle of one diagonal. And to break this, very radical means are needed, and also the only way to do it is bishop h3. If the Trojan bishop is not taken, then it will force itself by sacrificing to be taken. And if it is taken, then Shirov's king can invade. And now black wins. If white doesn't take on f6, then the three passed pawns will win. And otherwise, the principle of one diagonal is now broken. White's king cannot move in the square of the a-pawn. I like these graphical rules very much. This is really, really very helpful for me. I can now see it in a moment that the king cannot move into the square of the pawn. So the bishop must stop it. But somehow white's forces cannot separate now. They are, they both must defend d2 in the end, and then the bishop is forced to drawn to pieces, somehow forced to deflected. And then black is winning. Now, for example, d3 would be a major blunder. Then a major blunder. The king stops the d-pawn all by itself. The bishop stops the a-pawn, and this shall never, or it's even not necessary, it's already here the case. And this shall never happen, of course. The both pieces must be together, forced to defend d2 together, and then white will always lose, like in the game. The only move to win is king c4, and then after king b3, Tubalov resigned. Now both pieces must defend the d2 square, the last stop of the d-pawn. And this is bad news for white. He needs both pieces there, so nobody can stop the a-pawn, and so it's over. And really amazing combination by Alexei Shirov here, and in this case, to break the fortress based on the principle of one diagonal on the long diagonal, is even more important than the bishop itself. Chess really is an amazing game, isn't it?